Hello, and welcome back to Family Twist, a podcast about DNA surprises within the NPE, adoption, and donor conceived communities. I'm guessing you can already tell from my voice that I'm not Corey or Kendall. My name is Stephanie McLaughlin, and I'm the host of 40 Drinks, the podcast about turning 40. Corey, Kendall, and I launched our podcasts on the same day in the spring of 2022. I like to say we're raising them as twins because, trust me, it takes a village to put out a podcast. This week, we're swapping podcasts. I'm taking over Family Twist, and Corey and Kendall are over on 40 Drinks. You might remember this week's guest from episode 90 of Family Twist. Comedian Lauren Loguidice shared her DNA surprise and has come to the recent realization that she maybe has been hiding behind masks both personally and professionally. Lauren's performances on stage have involved a lot of character work. She's performed as personalities like Melania Trump and Martha Stewart. But as she's been reflecting on who she really is, biologically, emotionally, and mentally, she's ready to use the stand-up stage to be more vulnerable and more authentically Lauren. And with a little 40 Drinks seasoning to the Family Twist story, it's no surprise that this is all happening around age 40. Hey, Lauren, welcome back to Family Twist.
Thanks. I love Family Twist. I have the tote bag.
Oh, nice.
And I'm taking that around New York City.
I love it. Well, listen, as anybody who's listening can tell, I am neither Corey nor Kendall. So a little bit of a twist today. We're like NBC during Sweeps Week. We're doing like the big crossover event.
I love it. You're like twisting the Family Twist.
I am. So my name is Stephanie McLaughlin, and I'm actually the host of the 40 Drinks podcast on a regular basis. But Corey and Kendall and I are swapping off, like Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, like that whole thing. And there's just a little bit of element for me of like walking into somebody else's house here and kind of like seeing how they live. And I feel like we can't break anything. We have to probably shouldn't jump on the beds.
Yeah.
So your episode was number 90. It aired in March, and it told the story of how you found out, surprise,
yes,
that you were the product of a sperm donor.
Yeah.
So why don't you just do a very quick recap for anybody who's new here today?
So, okay, these are the elements that make my story my story. So I grew up in Howard Beach, Queens, basically the cast of The Sopranos. And then I didn't look like anyone in my family. And everyone was cast of The Sopranos, short, angry Italians. And I was this tall, happy-go-lucky, Nordic-looking person. And when I would ask them, why don't I look like anyone? They had an answer. And that was because the Vikings invaded Sicily. So fucked up. So I was going around New York City being like, I know I don't look Italian, but it's because I'm a Viking. So like a real moron. I even went back to Sicily for Discover My Roots trips. And I went back, not on so much to discover my roots. I just happened to be there. But while I was there, I was like, oh my God, my roots. I was in Norway being like, oh my God, that's where my people came from. Like a moron. I am going to start crowdfunding for a short film about a woman who thinks she's a Viking based on this story very soon.
Okay,
so stay tuned for that.
My husband needs to be in that because he's convinced he's a Viking as well. And
oh my God.
We went to Iceland many years ago, and he was like, this is my world. This is my country. These are my people. And we're going to Ireland this summer. Yeah. And so his Viking is coming out again. So I have a perfect extra for you, for your
Okay.
film.
Okay. Perfect. So this is lots of Viking talk for years, decades. And then finally I did a DNA test, and I was in denial actually for a few years, more because it's confusing. DNA. Well, and my take on it is that the Ancestry.com website is confusing. It's not pretty. It's run by Mormons. And this is what happens when you hate gay people. See, there's no one around to show you how to make things appealing.
Yeah.
So I was lost in Ancestry.com land. I didn't understand it. And then I finally met someone who told me, listen, those results are legitimate and you should look into that. because I had some discrepancies between me and my brother, who turns out to be biologically my parents' kid, full kid. It's because my dad's balls kicked into gear after me. I'm the oldest. They're slow to start, you know. They need a little starter help.
Yeah. Yeah. How old were you when you took the DNA test?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It was like all in the last like 6 years. So
Okay.
it's just been like a whirlwind. And then I found out like 3 or 4 years ago. And well, it was slow at first, and now it's happening very fast. Like Corey and I have talked about, I was like, all right, Corey's like, you don't really post so much about this experience. He's like, started calling me out. And I was like, I know. I gotta be more out, like more forthcoming about it. And I'm like, well, if you like, I had like one sketch with a character who was like in denial that her dad was a sperm donor. One sketch, and it was pinned to my profile, and I thought, like, isn't that enough? But I'm trying to talk. Yeah, no, people don't get it.
Well,
so I'm trying to talk more
it's
about
a lot to process, though.
Yes. And I need to call like one more family member before doing more stuff. And some of the stuff is very personal. And I do like, I just had an interview with a magazine the other day. It was like a video interview. And some of the stuff I said, I was like, oh my God, I think I overstepped. Like, I'm trying to be real about this because some of this is like not great. It's not very flattering to like, it's not very flattering to some people. However, if I don't share, then everyone's going to think they're crazy for going through the same thing.
Yeah. And who specifically is it not flattering to?
I mean, this is not singular to this person. This happens a lot because I posted about it in some Facebook groups, and I was just like bowled over by the response I got, by how many people were feeling this way, that the social dads can be a problem. Surprise, men being a problem. But it's tough because there's a certain generation, and I don't agree with it, but like it is what it is. Like there's a certain generation we're brought up, their virility is their manhood. And for a lot of cultures that still exists to this day. And those cultures are keeping this a secret. There's like many countries in which the thought of ever telling the kid is not even a thought. And no one does DNA tests. So,
well, and it sounds like your mom was kind of that mindset to begin with, that you had said to Corey previously when you asked your mom, when you finally figured it out, when were you going to tell me? And she was like, on my deathbed.
Yes. And well, there's another thing too, to be real, the Catholic Church. It's funny because we're talking, like I'm doing this at my mom's house, and my mom was like, what are they going to think, Lauren, what I did to you? Oh my God. They're going to think what I did to you. And I'm like, it's an absurd comment because the character's absurd, right? So the character thinks she's a Viking. She's like hacking away at wood. She's like sword fighting by herself. She's like living at home still because she's so fucked up in the head. And I guess that was a valid point. Because what am I saying? Am I saying the parents did it? So I want to make it clear. We've been very careful with casting that everyone has to be blameless, that they're not mean people. They're just don't know what to do, because there were two things that happened. The doctors said never to tell the kid.
Really?
Oh, yes. This was on recommendation. Like, to never tell the kid. And then the Vatican came out against sperm donation, that sperm donor kids are bastards. So now you're like, in Catholic communities, if you tell people, you might have people who like drink the Kool-Aid, and they're going to basically be like, you have a bastard kid.
Yeah. And so your New York Italian family is obviously very Catholic.
And we grew up around all Catholics, so it would have been a problem. In society, it wasn't really accepted until I think more gay parents were around, because the queers will talk about, like, we'll talk about it. Like, everyone talks about it openly, and that open conversation has changed things for like everyone, where it's not such a big deal. And so many people are going through IVF. So and now everyone has like podcast, it's so different.
It is
but like,
different.
I remember there's a Golden Girls episode, I need to find it, in which Blanche's daughter decides she wants to have a kid by herself, I think, and is going to get a sperm donor. Blanche is like, am I being old fashioned, and asks Dorothy what she thinks. And Dorothy, who's supposed to be the like liberal, intelligent one, was like, ugh, ew.
Oh,
So like it's like,
interesting.
yeah, I need to find that. That's a great meme. The Golden Girls was a pretty progressive
Yeah.
zeitgeisty show, and they were like ew. And I remember thinking like, oh, I guess that's ew, that's a weird, like what. So I get it why they didn't
Yeah.
tell me, and grateful because like I grew up around a lot of like little wannabe mobsters. A lot of them are a bunch of stupid punks. So like bullying to them is a warm up for extortion and racketeering.
Well, and here's another piece that you mentioned in your last conversation with Corey was that you said the Italian family, the humor, they're very funny people, but it's not always very nice.
No, it's not nice.
I related to that really hard because I'm from a big Irish family, and
Ah,
a lot of
yeah.
samesies there, a lot of samesies, really
Right.
like funny, quick, clever, witty people, but a lot of it is really sharp and really pointed.
Yeah.
So imagine you're a little kid or even a teenager or a 20 something, and you've got this thing that makes you different. You would have been a target.
Yeah, they try to keep me. I mean, I was just working on an hour of stand up called Misfit Meltdown, and like, working on this point that like my parents were trying to keep me from being bullied, but I was still bullied because I was different. Like, it just, there's still going to be some degree of like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Who were you bullied from? Like within the family or just like a normal stuff at school?
Yeah, stuff at school. And then, yeah, it wasn't like there was no like pointing me out from inner family other than how much everyone was getting bullied.
Okay.
Some parts of my family, rude, so rude, would say constantly, so rude. Where did this kid come from? Because I saw an uncle. I had someone pass away in my family. I'll try to keep this anonymous. And I saw a member of the family I've not seen in a long time. And he said, where did this kid come from? Like 5 times. And I'm like, this is what little Lauren had to deal with.
Yeah.
Like, it's so wrong. Because then you're saying you're not from us.
Right.
And you don't belong. And that is the worst thing. Not the worst thing. That is a shitty thing to do to a child, is to be like, you're not part of this tribe.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that gets under your skin, man. And that's the kind of stuff that calluses build up around. And like next thing you know, you've got these coping mechanisms that are, whether they're good or bad, they've come from these little statements that get made that get under our skin when we're kids.
Yes. And then you just like, it screws up and then there's genealogical bewilderment because you're not sure where you came from. It's like, how can I be sure of where I come from? And like, it takes a village, and it takes a village to fuck up a kid. Because my parents hated that. They hated when people would say that. But it's like, try controlling a pack of Italians. Like, fuck, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, no, I can say the same thing for the Irish. For the South Boston Irish.
Yeah, you can't tell them what to do. And as much as you might get most of them to comply, there's going to be the one asshole. I'm going to say whatever I want. And like, they're going to be a jerk.
And as soon as you pointed out that you're not supposed to say that, you've actually just like sliced open your guts and showed them the weakness. So now they're gonna.
Yes. Yeah, you can't, we can't say anything because she doesn't look like anyone. It's fucking obvious. And we can't say the thing that's obvious and everyone's thinking. They're going to say that with an earshot of me.
Yeah. Crazy. So one of the things that I like to look at on my podcast is the transition that most of us go through around age 40. It's actually a pretty well-documented developmental stage. And it's something that I think a lot of us don't really know we're headed at until we find ourselves kind of in a mess. Some people call it a midlife crisis. Some people have an easier way through, and it's really just more of a midlife evolution or awakening. But it strikes me that all of this that's happened to you is happening in this very period of time, right? This transition comes many times, most times between like 35 and 45. And so, like you said, 6 years ago, you did the DNA test. It was just a couple of years ago that you got the confirmation. And so Do you think that you would have been able to handle this, or how would you have handled it differently if you'd found out 10 years ago or 15 years
Well,
ago?
it's a great question because I couldn't have known for like mental health reasons
Mm-hmm.
until the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But I think if it was like when I found out when I was 25, it would have been rough. I might
Yeah.
not have come home I moved back when I was 28. I wouldn't have probably gone back, or maybe I would have. It's really nice to have found this out when DNA stuff has been evolved and
Mm-hmm.
like it's like click click click. Oh, here's my new sibling. It's so nice. It's
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
to not have gone through those years of searching and exasperation.
Yeah.
So I'm I have dealt with some anger because
Mm-hmm.
I went into show business not having a sense of self and this
Mm.
feeling like I told my therapist something's wrong with me and we're going to find out. And so I have only gone, I felt like my life has just been on an upswing since finding out. I feel like I understand what I look like now. It took me so long to find my voice. It really did. Like I've been, doing different things to the best of my ability throughout my career as
Mm-hmm.
best I can, but nothing really had my voice until I think the last like 5 years since I
Wow.
found out. It took finding out for me to find my voice. Like I was always into like characters before.
Yep.
Like I am known for a Melania Trump impersonation. I've done Martha Stewart. I also do a lot of original characters, and those were masks that I was
Yeah.
putting on. And now I don't feel the need to put on the mask. That's why I'm developing a stand up hour. I'm doing a lot more stand up because I just feel
Wow.
like that's where my voice is, myself.
No, I love that. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, all those years that you were doing characters primarily, I know you said it was a mask, but it's almost like there was a shell behind the mask.
Right.
And now you're starting to fill the shell and sort of get a little bit more oomph in your core, right? A little bit
Yeah.
more understanding of who
Right.
you are.
Yep. Yeah,
And so that
100%. Yeah.
so that's really changing your work.
Yeah, 100%. It's totally changed who I am on stage. 100%. It's
Wow.
totally changed my life. Yeah.
How does it feel to go from that sort of character place to this place of Lauren?
Well, it's a lot more vulnerable because it's like if someone's rejecting it, they're rejecting me more than a
Yeah.
mask. It's easier to fail behind a mask because you're like, well, it's not me.
Right.
Um,
That character didn't work.
yeah, yeah. So I've done like a lot of clown training in recent years, which has been very helpful because clown training, you have to feel. For me, it teaches you to directly engage with the audience and feel like you're enough. You don't need to
Hmm.
do anything. Like I had someone give me some advice, a clown teacher give me advice just for stand up. He's like, you don't realize that you're entertaining. You don't need to do anything. You're
Mm.
85 feet tall. You're weird. And like you could just tell, like you're strange. You're a strange person. You come on stage, you're huge and you're strange. You don't need to do much. Like you're just, I've had
Right.
directors say that you don't realize you just don't have to do much. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't have to push and try in a weird way.
Yeah. It's almost like you can downshift into the you
Yeah.
versus trying to like
Yeah.
upshift into like yada da 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 into like the
Yeah.
characters,
A
right? Like,
100%. And even as stand up, I have habits of going into da 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 da. And my work is to not do that. And then also when I'm not doing that, believe that I'm funny because I've done so much comedy, but like I have trouble just letting myself, a clown teacher says, like funny is around you and you kick it away, like just relaxing and believing like you're okay and it's going to be okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no matter what, it's going to be a good time.
How has this whole revelation changed your relationship with your parents, if at all? I mean,
Um,
you're the parents you grew up with.
yeah, so I think my mom and I are closer because we've had to have some conversations. I'm like, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
what was the circumstances? What was the lead up? So that was good.
Were you happy with her answers? Were you comfortable with her answers?
I mean, the answer showed I was very comfortable with her answer. She just told me the info. She would have, I think, liked to just keep denying it even when I knew, which is wild. Like how much level of denial.
Yeah.
But she has this great boyfriend too, who's like, so what? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like we all had to do things to make a family. You wanted a baby that much? I don't know if that's what he's saying, but it feels like that's what's happening because she has someone who in her life who's just so supportive of it. Both my parents, what I learned from this is the shame is enormous around these issues. And what the Catholic Church has done to people is shameful because of how much shame they put on, how much they like, the Italian culture, just how they, and a lot of cultures blame women for all of the fertility issues, blame women for miscarriages, just blame. So I just have a lot of empathy for them dealing with the shame through secrecy and this secret that they couldn't talk about ever.
Yeah. Do you suppose they talked about it between themselves?
That's a great question. I was just thinking about that. I never thought about that.
Like laying in bed at night, kind of like...
Right. Like your cousin had to say something again. Yeah. So
especially once they started having other kids, right? And like now there's like compare and contrast. And now there's like... I wonder, that would be so interesting to know, like if it was something that they talked about behind closed doors, even at all.
I gotta go ask my mom. I'm gonna ask her, give her a few limoncellos.
And now, what about, you've met your bio dad?
Yes,
right?
yes, yep.
And how many siblings do you have? How many bio siblings do you have?
Well, I have 19 half siblings, that I know of.
Okay.
But they're like, maybe we estimated up to 270.
Hi there. We are halfway through this wild and funny ride with Lauren. If you're enjoying the story and finding comfort, laughter, or even just a sense of camaraderie and the bizarre twists of life, Kendall and Corey would love your support. Hit subscribe, leave them a review, and share this episode with friends who might appreciate the beauty in life's unexpected turns. Your engagement helps the fellas keep bringing these stories to light. And who knows, maybe you'll help someone discover a part of themselves they've been searching for. Stay with us for the second half. You don't want to miss what's coming up next with Lauren.
Jim was a very popular donor.
He was a regular down at the bank?
He was a regular. Well, at the time, it wasn't really a bank. It was just med students going to jack off in the closet.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that piece. Oh, that's
so gross. And it wasn't frozen at all. It was fresh. I got the fresh stuff.
Like serious turkey baster situation.
Serious turkey baster. I heard, which makes me feel better, I heard that the doctors would be very discreet and they would find a way so that no one was ever in the building at the same time.
Okay.
Which I think that's sweet. Just like, let's not think too much about what's happening.
Oh my.
Because I know there's very negative stories out there about very terrible people who've done doctors. But there were doctors who were like empathetic and kind and were like, okay.
Yeah, this was not a situation where somebody was being taken advantage of. This was a situation of consent and, yeah.
Jim got beer money. My mom got a baby.
Everybody was happy.
Everybody
was 1984.
Happy. Yeah.
Everybody was happy.
And my mom did it too without hormones. I was like, yeah, mom. She's like, I just went in and they did it right there. First shot, bam, pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think they tried. I think they do hormones because it's so expensive, but it's less expensive. So you could, like, if you had access to sperm, that was not so expensive, you could just toss it up a few times and see if it does anything. But if it's like $10,000 a pop,
right? You want to make sure everything's ready.
You need to get a winner.
That's a riot. So I think you should have a Facebook group of your half siblings.
We do. It's a Facebook Messenger chat, what we call it, because we're Spencers and we call it Spencer's Gifts. Mm-hmm.
How many of them have you met?
I've met quite a few, maybe 5 or 6 in
Yeah.
person. We've Zoomed with some others. You know, everyone's in like a different stage of life. Like if they're raising kids, forget it.
Yep.
There's like going to be
Right.
hard. But some siblings are not having kids. A lot of us are unemployable, meaning we're entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah.
We get that from our bio dad, like
Yeah.
hardcore.
I had an aunt say to me one time, I started a marketing agency 17 years ago. And very shortly after I left my last full-time job, she cornered me at a family event and she said, "You have the same disease I do." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "You are terminally unemployable." It's like, oh, yeah, no, I definitely have that.
Right, right, right. There's some of us. Even my bio dad's a doctor, but he found a way to do outpatient stuff. Like for the kind of medicine he does, it's a bad life. However, if you opt out of the way people usually do it and just opt in to making less money but good money,
You can make your own thing.
yeah, dude.
So I know that none of your other half siblings are entertainers, but do you find, I'm trying to think about this piece of you that, growing up was a little bit empty, the sense of self, the genealogical bewilderment. Do you find that you relate to them? Do you see yourself in them? I know Corey mentioned the nature versus nurture piece, but like, what of the nature piece do you see among your siblings?
Definitely some of us like have this circular way of talking and we have some ADHD vibes, definitely from our bio dad.
Yeah.
We got a lot of that. I think it's curiosity, language. That's
Yeah.
another thing. Travel, people who are just adventurous and curious and intellectual.
Yeah.
Thinkers. Like every one of my siblings that I've met is a thinker. I mean, some of them are more or less. Yeah, it's cool. It's like having these new best friends that are there for you.
Yeah.
Some are more than others. And again, it's because like some people are just in a different stage of life and it's hard to like integrate other people when you're like, I'm barely treading water.
Yeah.
So, and it's like family, right? So people could come and go. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're family still.
Yeah. So part of the transition that I talk about a lot in this, around your 40th birthday piece is that you go from really trusting all those people around us who tell us all the things that we should do, right? Our parents, our teachers, our mentors, they all want the best for us. And so they sort of say this, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. A lot of time it's, career and getting married and, all the things. And then the transition really is that we realize that we have all this experience that we've accumulated ourselves and we start to trust ourselves more and we start making decisions in different ways and we start making decisions that really serve the authentic us more than the sort of adult 1.0 us who was just sort of nose down checking boxes, dig, dig, dig. Are you feeling any of that in your life? Are you
because of my I feel like genetics. By 28, I quit all that shit. So I've been doing my own thing. And I see what you're saying because not for me, but for other people. And I'm saying this, I'm trying to say this with the least amount of judgment. And it might sound like I'm going to judge, but it's like, yo, you got what you fucking deserved. Like if you thought you were going to go work and whatever, you're going to become a lawyer because your dad told you that like that's what you had to do to like as a backup, but you really wanted to be a writer. When you start looking at like calculating and being like, oh, in 20 years I'm this or 20 years I'm that, and then you're going to start to get really fucking scared.
Right.
Because you're like, oh my God, like I'm not doing what I meant to be doing. But I feel like if you're in the zone of like an improv teacher is like, I know is in her 60s, I think. Mm-hmm. She's at a gym every day. She's, doing her thing and she's still improving and she's still like creating and writing every day. And she's been doing that since like the 80s. And I look to people like that, like the 1980s. She's been doing that. She's a founding member of the Groundlings.
Wow.
Her name is Phyllis Katz. She's she's a genius performer. And she's just like doing her thing as always. Doesn't have to stop. Like that's the other thing that happens is sometimes people like at 28 or 30 or 35, they think, oh my God, it's time to have babies. Oh my
Right?
God, it's time to do X. I have to get serious about my life. And then they end up realizing 10 years later, fuck, I
Yes.
fucked up. I totally fucked
Yes.
up.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the stories. It's like, oh, we went to college and we started dating, and well, now we graduated and we've been dating 4 years, so we probably should get engaged, and then we should get married, and we should buy the house, and we should have the kid. And then like you at 35, you like wake up one day on the side of a soccer field and you're like, who am I and whose life is this? This is not what I set out to do.
Yes.
But you just followed the shoulds all the way down the path to some conclusion that is all of a sudden now when things have to change, it's scary because they're big things that have to change. You've built these mountains.
Yes, and there's often little people involved, and it's funny. I'll try to do this anonymously as I can. I had a friend who was like the shoulds. I should get married and I should have kids, and I should have not one, I should have two. And she's like, I should stay, and it's not working out, but I should stay. I should stay. I should stay. Her kids were like, basically within a week of each other, independently came up to her and were like, can we go? Can we get out of here? Can we get out of here? Can we go? This is over. Can we just like start a new life together? Like they were like ready.
Wow.
So it's like, how much time did you waste? And like how much, it's the shoulds, it's all bullshit. All the should, and then you got to like, oh, time to quit. Like at every decade marker, I feel like, or every 5 years, there's always like another marker of someone like in the entertainment industry. I could speak to that. Or like, oh, I'm 30. Guess I'm just a character actor now. Oh, I'm 35. Time to quit. Like, fuck that. Like you doing, one of my dear friends is Matthew Silver. I would say, dear colleagues, I say, I would love him to be a friend. He's hard to catch. Matthew Silver, when you look him up, you'll know what I'm talking about. He's his own animal. He's like me to the nth, the 10th. Okay. He's what I would love to be. And he was screaming one day. He was like, Lauren, it's like, we're going to do this till we die. It's just, that's who we are. This is what we do. And that's it.
Right. And I think the challenge though is that so many people find it hard to listen to the voices inside of them, because when those little questions start bubbling up, they're scary. And you've built something, you've built a structure, a relationship, a life, a something. And so to listen to the voices is so terrifying, because like, what if that means I have to blow up my entire world? Or what if that means, and it doesn't always. It might just mean, you know what, our relationship has to shift a little bit so that I have more space to do X or Y. Or... Right.
That's also true too. You can make it work. And see, I'm not a good person to talk to about this. Like when people are having questions, I'm like, blow it up, fuck it, just. So says the person without kids. So it's tough.
Right. Same here.
Like I'm here down in Costa Rica, and I'm at a surf camp, and I'm not doing the surf camp stuff. I've done it before, but I'm not doing it. It's called Surf Simply. It's in Osara. It's great. And they have like a whole regimen, but like there's all these people learning, and they're like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. I'm like I do surfing like everything else my own way. I don't do certain things. Like the whole thing of surfing is like based on individual expression and bucking the norm, bucking the trend. And so do it. If you don't feel like going,
I've never surfed before, but my guess is it would be becoming one with the water.
Right. That's the goal.
In some way, right?
It's the goal. Yes. And then there's all these techniques of what you should do. And then they feel like I should be going for I should be aspire to like go for all the big waves, or I should, aspire to do like, to be going out in the big days. Why? Who gives a fuck? Just do exactly what you feel like doing.
Do what's the most fun for you.
This is a leisure activity.
Right. Yes. And P.S. You're a unique individual. So to become one with the water is going to look a little different for you than it would for me or the next guy.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's kind of what happens as you come into your 40s, is that you start, there becomes backbone behind those kinds of thoughts of like, I want to do it my way. I want to do things that make sense for me. I want to do things that feel good for me, or that make me feel fulfilled, or, that are authentic. And I think we don't have the confidence for that most of us don't have the confidence for that in our younger adult years, in our teens and 20s, and sometimes even into our 30s. We don't have the confidence to make those kinds of bold decisions.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm not part of the
Yeah.
I just see a lot of people giving up on themselves at every age. And it's sad.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm really just so interested in your story. It's such a cool story. I love that it's happening to you right during this transitionary period. And I feel like, another 5 years from now is going to be like a quantum leap from where you are today and where you were 5 years ago. And I think we can probably all realize that you are not one of those people that's going to give up on themselves, because you've found a new thread and it's time to chase it down.
I hope every day. I mean, I'm always working on these things. Like I talk about them, like I'm so convinced of them, but like I also am like thinking of my limiting beliefs a lot, and then thinking about like creating mantras around that, because the world is full of shitty information and shitty people saying shitty things, and I don't want like my mind to be pulled there. So yeah, it's work. It's definitely work.
Interesting. What limiting beliefs do you, or just share one? Like
sure, I have my chart here. I have a
chart.
chart. Well, I have a chart in which I like diagnose them.
How did you do that?
That was okay. So it's through this book called Authentic Success, which Kimmy Caldwell recommended. And a contract is like a thing, of agreement you have with yourself. And then I have one column for the belief I have with myself that I'm finding. And then I have like the belief coming up around that thought.
Yeah.
What misbelief am I having is in another column. And what is the actual truth? Who am I? And then I try to find affirmations on that.
The thing that is so challenging for me is that limiting beliefs are so invisible to us most of the time, that it's like, I know I'm being held back in some way, but I have no idea what it is, what the belief is, that limiting belief that is actually holding me back. So how did you identify them?
It's hard. Identify, like I could just feel like in talking about it, I'm like, wait a minute. And also I work with Kimmy Caldwell as a coach for like the last 8 months, and that's been very helpful.
Okay.
So, and I think moving forward, I'll probably always, like, I read a lot of like mindset books, and I read, I'm into that self-help kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, me too, obviously. I mean, I did a whole podcast about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I made such a mess of my 40 transition that it's one of these things now. I feel like if I can go back and help other people, maybe not make such a mess about it by showing all kinds of different versions of it, then hopefully that will,
for sure.
I don't know, bandage some karmic wounds or cosmic wounds or something. I don't know.
So so one thing I would like to share about my chart is that there was a belief coming up about like, because in show business, people will say people only value, then I don't say people. There are some the suits in the corporates. They love men in their 20s is like who they want to attract. That's who they make movies for. And there's this thing of like, that's who you need to attract to make things that are valuable. And I was like, and I attract people of all ages, which I love in my shows. There'll be such a diverse age range, which is so fun, bringing people together because they connect on so many things that they discover. And so I say, one of my mantras is, I'm attracting the right people for the right time in my life. And then I think what I'm sharing is relevant to misfits of all ages. And it's all valuable. And I'm happy for all of them. And I'm not going to treat one group better.
Right. Right. It's interesting because as I've done, I don't know, I had 100 of these conversations. You can slice and dice, once you get a group of anything, you can start slicing and dicing them in different ways. And I love that for you, it sounds like you sliced and diced to, it's like almost, it's a vertical, right? Misfits.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter like what size you are. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter any of those things. It's just misfits is your slice of life.
Thanks.
I like that. No, it's super cool. And frankly, it's so powerful to be able to give language to that and to be able to carve that out and really know who it is that you're working for.
Thanks. It took a while, like with anything else, like it takes people to know, like it takes a while. And then working through all of this stuff, these voices about like who's valuable and who's not. Because I think if you start believing that shit, then you're going to start looking at yourself. And I don't care if you're 25, when you're not 25 anymore, if you start thinking that's who's valuable, when you're going to have a hard time at 30, at 35 and on. So I think it's like, I'd had friends when I was like in my 20s, they would like say shit about older people. And I never jumped on that train bandwagon. In fact, I was like, ugh, you guys are assholes. And I feel like I've gotten the karma. So I feel like I'm just going to ride that karma as I get older.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah. Sow it and reap it. I love it. You were sowing and reaping the good stuff. Yeah. I also bristle against the sort of like corporate focus on the young men and, the prioritization and the, fetishization of that sort of the young demographic, men and women. And so I find myself like looking at stories of people in Hollywood who are telling women's stories and women of different ages because, there's a story about my original 40 Drinks project that someday I would love to tell. And it's like, it's going to be someone like that that's going to tell the story. It's not going to be a suit.
Right.
They're not going to get it. I'm not going to get a story about a 40-year-old woman.
Yeah. I was in Australia and this woman named Mandy Nolan, she's a comedian, freaking hysterical. She writes with such candor. She was minting money. I mean, they had to get chairs from the outside. They couldn't fit the amount of people in the room. They had a show called Women Like Us. It was two 40-something-year-old moms speaking in suburban areas to that demo, who no one gives a fuck about.
Right.
So I just think the suits are idiots. They just don't understand, what's happening and what people are interested in often, They're like the lowest common denominator.
That's exactly it. I was just going to go there because, again, in my day job, I own a marketing agency. And so I used to do these presentations on the evolution of marketing. And the last 50 years of the last century was all about mass media and lowest common denominator and having to resonate with the broadest number of people. And that, I think, is what a lot of those suits that we keep talking about are making versus now. With the evolution of the internet, there are so many pockets for different people and so many, ways for us to congregate in different areas and to become part of different groups based on different elements of things we're interested in or we believe in or belong to. So yes, that still exists, those suits making the, superhero movies. But I think there's room for all of us now where maybe 50 years ago there wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Natasha Lyonne was just talking about this on Blocks, Neil Brennan's podcast. She's like, I couldn't do what I was doing. Like, I couldn't be who I was 20 years ago. Yeah. But now I can. And I just go where it's warm and I just make my thing.
Yeah. I like that. Go where it's warm. That's great advice for all of us, right? Mm-hmm. Says the woman sitting in Costa Rica too. Yeah. So, there's a dual meaning there. Well, listen, Lauren, I have taken up a lot of your time today and I appreciate you hanging with me here on Family Twist. And you're going to stay in touch with Corey and Kendall and I, right?
Yes,
and let us know
absolutely,
about your 1 hour show. And then you and I are going to reconnect in a couple of years and see how your transition continues to evolve.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please be in touch. Anyone wants to be in touch with anything that I'm doing, Lauren Logi, LOGI.com, Lauren, LOGI.com. And there you can get links to everything and find me all the places.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lauren.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Kendall. I am one of your co-hosts for the Family Twist podcast. And today I want to say thank you to our friend and colleague, Stephanie McLaughlin, who did the guest host gig for us this episode. I knew it would be good, and it is. So thank you so much, Stephanie. Your ease of conversation with your guests is obvious. I thought you and Lauren had great rapport. And Lauren's an easy person to interview, but you asked really good questions. And for those of you who haven't already listened to the 40 Drinks podcast that Stephanie regularly hosts, you should. She has great guests. And again, if you enjoyed the questions that she posed to Lauren, then you will really enjoy listening to 40 Drinks on a regular basis. Again, thank you, Stephanie. We love you and we appreciate it.